Welcome to the show, the business show to inspire and encourage the entrepreneurial spirit in all of us. The promise of our show is to introduce you to expert guests who will inspire and encourage you to start your own business. And they're also here to help me uncover the secrets of living with F.A.V.O.R. F.A.V.O.R is an acronym, and it stands for faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. These are kind of the 5 pillars that showed up in my world over the last 40 years of being in business, and I want to share them with you. My name is Lisa Mosbey, and I'm the host of Living with F.A.V.O.R. So welcome. You know, I love to have guests, and sometimes I even get to share a bit of advice. But today, it's all about our guest. We're talking about abundance, and our expert guest is with she's a financial agent with Lions Financial, or Lions Wealth Builders. I'm sorry. She's a financial agent with Lions Wealth Builders. I want to go on my own and not look at my notes here. Janine holds regular training workshops, financial training workshops for women. And she also does a daily meditation practice that I'm sure you can score an invite to if you stick around to the end of this show. I want you to help me welcome my friend in all of her wisdom and all of her goddess energy. Please welcome Janine Watkins. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. How's your day been?
It's been good. I kind of fumbled through that. I think of Lions Wealth Builders. I have a friend, her name is Lion. Her last name is Lion. And she comes to mind every time I say that. And so I got myself distracted as I was introducing you. Her face popped up, and I was reading the word lions, and her face popped up. And I was like, that's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to my new friend, Janine, today with Lions Financial Builders, right? Is that what it is? Lions
Wealth Builders. And
Wealth Builders. Wealth Builders.
For your friend who has the name Lion, actually the broker who is literally mentoring me, and I'm through his practice, like his son's name is Lion. So there is no coincidence. This is a beautiful conversation already.
Oh my goodness. I love that. So tell me, what do you think of the word abundance? How does that resonate with you?
Well, it's funny because words, they're all made up anyway. Like literally we define them. And even from the first time I was thinking about my own abundance, and I think about what this definition has changed, even these last 2 weeks, Lisa, I keep discovering for myself that most people would call abundance, at least in my field, having wealth, having riches, having more than one would need. And it's crazy because before I stepped into the financial industry, I didn't ever resonate with that. I know there's a lot of people out there who more than what money is, it's having us also recognize where we sometimes feel we don't have something to give. And so my biggest definition for abundance has always been something that you not only have, but something you're willing to share. And more than what you have, enough for yourself, being happy, being in a space of content, being willing to give it to someone else. And so honestly, abundance, a lot of people will call it just a large quantity of some source. And I feel like a lot of times people think about it in the mindset of it being materialistic or monetized. And I think one of the biggest things most people can recognize about abundance, at least in this day and age, is it's anytime you give value. If you give value, not only just for yourself, but also witnessing and recognizing it in another. And I think that's the biggest thing that abundance reminds me of, and where I'm so grateful to be on this honorable call to have women in business to start thinking about where is it that I bring abundance, not only into my own life, but then I add and I give people the tools of how to create that abundance in their life.
Yeah. And that's what we want for people to take away. I couldn't have said it better. We want them to take away this idea that there's something within each of us that is a gift. It's an experience. It may come from our past. It may come from our upbringing. It may come from our education. but we have something that is abundant in us that makes us an expert and able to share with other people. You are an expert in a number of fields. You know, we're doing the meditation, which we'll invite folks to later at the end. But you came from a background of engineering and moved into wealth. And so how did these two tie together? How did that come about for you? How did you get to where you are today on this path that you've been walking?
So, and it's so funny. I love the word coincidence. Like I consider them either coincidence or perfect coincidences. And this one just happened to be perfect. In my background engineering, I was practicing for 3 years out in California. I just graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, home of the Broncos. And at least with graduating from that, very often people say, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And I was very active in college. I was engaged with many different philanthropic activities. And one of the ones that it wasn't necessarily philanthropic, but it really had me thriving in our polytechnic policies of literally hands-on learn by doing was Rose Float. And a lot of people know it out in California. A lot of people who watch the Rose Bowl, usually on New Year's, were known because of our float that is all student built, and most everything outside of the donations are done with either alum or people who are affiliated with either Cal Poly universities. And one of my friends, he had just gotten hired on. Again, he knew someone, and they were looking for more people to start up this $1 billion project called the Crenshaw LAX Light Rail. And so I got hired on by a company called Walsh Construction. I worked there for 3 years. And it was interesting, though, because this is where that transition happened. I realized there was something inside of me that I was happy I was doing what I knew I wanted to do, which was literally building projects. And I was feeling like there was something missing. And so before I could really question it, Walsh Construction got handed the LaGuardia Airport in New York, and they needed engineers to go there. I put a pin in it and I moved there. And it was funny, though, because as soon as I got there, one, everything was increased, not just like my social life, but literally my bank amount. And so the first thing I did was like, I was curious. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? And this is where my sister planted a very powerful seed. She had just decided after almost a decade of working at not Walsh, after working a decade for Wells Fargo, that she wanted to open up her own brokerage. And I've always trusted her. She was the first person who opened up my account, my CDs, all of this stuff. And when I moved to New York, she was the first person I asked for advice for again. And she did something I'd never known her to do, because she literally was opening some of their branches, literally in San Marcos down in California. She had called in someone she was working with, another broker, which is just someone who literally is a fiduciary. They have their securities licenses and everything. And they literally walked me through not just my life, but what my life was projected to look like on a scale of money. And I wasn't going to get where I knew I wanted to be. And I also realized in that window of time I had with them, how much my life I was doing it for now and not thinking about later. And it wasn't too much of a transition, even for myself. It was literally shifting a few things and me realizing, oh my gosh, on this scale now, like I know not only what I want to do, but I also know where I'm going to be. And it was so funny because at that time, my sister's like, oh, do you know anyone else who possibly could learn from this? I'm like, yeah. She's like, do you want to learn this stuff? I'm like, nope, too busy. So planted a very powerful seed for me back in 2016. And it just stayed at that. And as I lived in New York 2.5 years, this same question that started coming to me when I was in California started bubbling up. Like, what am I doing? What is missing? And it was funny because in that time, it wasn't a new project. It was a new relationship. I'd been dating this gentleman for 2.5 years, and there was this love I'd never known. And there was this feeling I started to get as I started working on sometimes Saturdays, always late on the weekends, super early in the weekdays. And it was funny because the question I was asking myself is, who am I living my life for? And so I remember it was September 11th, 2018. I was doing a safety walk with my assistant project manager, and I turned to Pete and I was just like, I have to quit. He was like, stopped our walk right there. It's like, are you sure? Like, went back, talked to my manager. Raka was very understanding. We talked about what it would take to replace me literally with, and I'm going to be honest, I know a lot of people say this, like I literally was someone who I knew there was something in those 2.5 years that I had created other projects. I had been on other campaigns. I was like on this Connect committee. I was helping with the interns. I was helping with like, not just like our work in the office, but the retention of how people felt community. And it's a huge thing for me. I always call myself a consciously channeling current. Like I literally channel people's energy, and I was doing it in the right time. I just was kind of in the wrong place. And so after the 3 weeks to replace me and to have other people be up to board, I stepped away. And now, again, you asked how I got to the financial parts. Not there yet, 'cause
Yeah,
this is still 2018. In 2019, I really focused on writing my book. We moved to Florida. We then started doing our road trip over to California. 2019 April, we went to Thailand, Taiwan, Japan, came back. Me and my love, we went to Burning Man. We then flew from Japan straight back to, again, LA, and then did that road trip. And then after Labor Day weekend, we were in that proposition of like, okay, my book is almost done. And where do we want to be? And he's like, I've lived with you in many places now, New York, Florida, we've lived across seas, and California. Why don't we try Minnesota? Because that's where he's from. So again, I'm a proud born and raised California for the first 26 years of my life. He had never lived outside of Minnesota until me. And so I was like, okay, we'll give this a try. Lived there from September to February with nothing but love for that land and everything. And as many people know, 2020 was a very different time because after those few beginning months, we then went into a very interesting time in the world. And it was funny because at that time I had just finished my book. It was due to come out May 4th, 2020. And a lot of things had shifted. The bookstores and the libraries and all these free things that I had set up for me to do these readings and promote my book shut down. At the time, I was also looking at what else did I want to do? Because I was like, I quit my job. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to do all this stuff. And so between 2020 to 2021, I took on multiple jobs. I became an author. I was a fitness instructor. I got all of for personal, for group. I ended up becoming a dance conditioning instructor. I became a talk show host for an e-commerce company called Dib Afric for Afrocentric fashion. I ended up becoming a roofer. I ended up working at a haunted house. Like I literally was doing everything. One, because I was told, and I don't know why I forgot this part. I was told I wasn't essential. I was like, me? You're telling Janine Watkins she's not essential. And so taking on all these roles and stuff, I still found that funny question of like, who was I living my life for and what was I really creating? And so it wasn't until 2021, my sister came back and that little beautiful seed she had planted. And she's like, hey, we haven't done a review for a while. Like, let's see where you're at. And it wasn't until then I started realizing, Lisa, that what I had created back in 2016, when I realized that I didn't have to be the expert, I just needed to know people who wanted to be experts in other areas. I had created a foundation for myself. And in creating that foundation with my sister, who I not only trust and love, but I wanted to know how to actually do these things. And she gave them to me freely. I wanted to be part of those types of conversations. And so in 2021, when I found out not only that I had literally not lost anything, this non-essential person, I found out how quickly when you're in positions that you can give your entire life and just be put in a position where if you're not them, they're not going to do for you what they would have done for themselves. I started having more conversations, and January 2021, I had flown out to Phoenix and I got real about what I wanted to do. And so when I flew back, that is when I decided to take my life accident and health license. I decided to learn more about not just what I can do for myself, but how can I do it for others. And that is how I actually began my financial agency. Now, again, I was fresh. I just tried to do all these other jobs. And for the first time, I was in a conversation with, what did I actually want to do? Not just for myself, but what could I show other people? You don't need to know it all to then know how to do it for yourself and then want to show it for others. And so that's how I started working in the financial industry. And I'm a very proud agent. And I love not just that I get to do it for myself, but I get to leave legacy for other people now too.
One of the things that I saw on your LinkedIn, after doing a little fishing, I found a statement that you put on LinkedIn that said, I'm going to read this to you. The thing that sets me apart from others is my determination, positive attitude, and my high standard of care for my clients. Well, first, it resonated with me because when I think of the word determination, I get this picture of my grandma. So the word lion, the word determination, you're just like flashing my whole life before my eyes as I have this conversation with you. But coming deeper into like the standard of care with your clients, like most people, we come out of college, we jump into a job, you really spent a lot of time and energy exploring, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to be in health? Do I want to be in fitness? Do I want to be, in architecture and building, like exploring all of these things. And when you have the capacity to do so many things, sometimes it's hard to narrow it down. Now that you have, how does determination and your standard of care affect your client? Like, how do they benefit? How do they benefit from who you are and coming through those things that you've set for yourself, like those intentions that you've set for yourself and how you want to show up for your clients? Tell me about that.
Well, first and foremost, and I love that you say that, because at least for my clients, and I'm so grateful for this, because I am someone who's just, I'm going to say like falling, like, what's that? I forget how they say that.
Falling forward.
Failing forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fail forward all the time. And that's why I'm so grateful with the structure that I do have, because my determination is, I know I'm going to win. And whoever's on my team, game on. Because when I think about what I actually chose to do as an engineer, like, yes, I would add all of the personality, but when it really comes down to it, bottom line, you needed to build a solid foundation. As a civil engineer, like, especially in New York, well, California too, but especially New York, it's literally built on buildings that have already been like bulldozed over. And so you literally have to work in and pull out everything before you can create any type of solid foundation. So that's my first determination. Like, I'm not just going to like slab a cookie on top. Like, no, make sure your plate is clean. And before you even clean your plate, make sure your sink is clean. And so when I think about what people do in the financial industry that I don't ever want my clients to think I'm capable of, is just slapping something on. Like, finances are not one size fits all. So more than anything for my clients, I want them to know I'm determined to get to the bottom of the what so, that why have you not gotten where you want to get right now? And so one of the other mentors that I have, he talks a lot about how more than anything, people who operate in finances and like think money is dirty, or they think that money is get it quick and spend it just as quick, they're working from scarcity. And I call it scarcity. I know people call it scarcity, but scarcity, like you're working from areas that are literally a lack of abundance. And one of my biggest mentors, oh my gosh, I actually met her this last well, actually it was my birthday week, month, whatever. I met her out in July, out in Vegas. And I love her. Her name is Penny Oy. And she reminds me that if people are working from scarcity, then they're looking at everything that they don't have or they don't want. And if you're always focusing on that, like, money really is an energy. And so I have my clients focus on where their energy goes, because where your energy, I know Tony Robbins says that, where your energy goes, like, that's where it's going to flow. And so if we're looking at where scarcity is, a lot of people who might be in debt, they might feel like I'm living month to month, I'm just in that paycheck to paycheck type of world. I want them to first realize that if you're operating from scarcity, you're going to beget more scarcity. Whereas if you look at abundance, like Penny says, you focus on everything that you want and everything you already have. Give yourself gratitude, grace, prosperity. And so if I have people really dealing with the world of finances with a solid foundation, to really just get clear first and foremost, like, I need you to get to indemnity, and indemnity just means zero. Like, I need you to get to zero. Like, if you have an abundance, awesome. Where is that baseline? If you're in a negative or a deficit, honestly, where is your baseline? And so if I can have people being real with me first and foremost as a client, where they mainly operate from when they're not just on a material level, but mental, emotional, and spiritual. We got to have all the 4 houses, not just cleaned, but really clear in what they're creating. And so for me, that's where the biggest care comes from. Like, I can't take someone as a client if I don't know what their big goals are. I need to know what their whys are. I need to know what their what not they're going to do's are. Like, I need to know honestly, because if I can't have enough trust with you that you can be honest with me and where you're afraid, what you want to grow in, like, tell me your wildest dreams, everything else will just be on rocky foundation. And so that's what I mean when I talk about my determination to be in that care mindset, because I want everyone who works with me, whether they be referrals or someone that I actually have known my entire life, to know if they work with me, they're literally choosing to have someone represent them who really pretends like if I was in their position, I would do the exact same. Like, I don't want them to feel like if they're walking in a conversation with me, they have to hide or look good, because at the end of the day, it's the same thing with a project. I still have that engineering mindset. I'm projecting out a project, but now I'm projecting out people. And if they can't get real with it, then I want them to first know, like, before anything gets exchanged, like, how do we actually get to a place where you can trust people to know you are not only wealthy, you are abundant in whatever value you can bring to a conversation.
Yeah. The lack of that lack mindset, moving people through that is one piece of it. It's like getting them over those blocks, and you can do anything with numbers. I love that you said we work backward. I figure out their why, I figure out their outcome, I figure out where they want to be, where they want to land, when do they want to achieve some of those highlights, and then back into that process, figure out the plan that works for them, and it's custom every time, it's personalized every time, but it considers not just their financial position or their age, but all of these other pieces. Like, who are you? Who is your family? And how do we blend all of that together so that it works? I love, that holism that you bring to it. I look at that in health. We look at the whole person, the body, the mind, the spirit, and the business. That's kind of my motto now, is like, let's look at that whole person. And what do we need to do? Another, I'm going to pull out another saying for you. Another one that you shared was, I'm going to make a difference, not because I always stand out, but because I always stand up. I am willing to take risks, do what is necessary, and I always think of the goodness of others. I always think of the goodness of others and willing to stand up. This is a business show for women, about women. And so the reason I brought you in is because you're in the finance world. When we think of abundance, we oftentimes think of that, but I also know you personally and know where you come from in your thought processes with energy and the abundance of who we are and how we can give that value to people. When I read that, how you stand up and that you think about the goodness of others, how could you speak to or impart some wisdom to those people thinking about starting a business, or maybe they're in business and they're ready to level up that business? What's your wisdom? What are your thoughts that you might be able to impart on our audience around that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is the biggest one.
Okay.
And it's so funny too, because it was literally my sister. If anyone is looking to start any type of business, first find a mentor. Look at someone, not just on the front side, because again, I know Instagram, I know YouTube, everyone has a face. Look for someone that if you look behind that, you see their relationship, you see their routine, you see how they treat people when the person that they're treating can give them nothing. Like, find a mentor that you look up to and that you're inspired by, and first learn from them. And this is the crazy thing too, because most of my mentors aren't even alive. They're people in books, but have left very powerful legacies. Because the biggest thing, and I know you can probably attest to this too, Lisa, most people who come from, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but come from the average thinking instead of like the world-class thinking, look for comfort instead of growth. And if you look for comfort, you're going to talk to your best friends, you're going to talk to your family. And again, they're going to support you, but they're the quickest people to kill your dream of what you want to create in your business. Because a lot of times the people who are around us are the first people that we're going to grow grit from. They're going to be the people that if anything falls, they're going to help like lick our wounds and get us back to that thought of process. But if you really want to build a business, you need to find a mentor who is mentally tough, has gone through all of it. And even if they don't talk to you directly, find a way, like create a possibility for you to actually have those conversations and questions with someone who's going in the same direct line as you. Because there's going to be a lot of course correcting. There's going to be like, I don't know, like what ifs, like, oh, this isn't safe. Like, if you can find the person who is going to speak to your bigness, get you to your goodness until you can pay it forward. I think that's the next step, is finding someone who wants to work with you and not just work next to you. They want to run, because I do recognize that also business moves at the speed of trust. More with yourself. Again, when I think about like falling forward and failing forward, you have to be always working on yourself and then trusting the people around you. Because again, and I only say this with like so much experience at this point, the first few years are going to be the toughest to block out those who only speak to the area that serves your fear. Because if you have even a small voice, a little bit of faith, just an ounce of faith that what you want to do is so worth it, you are going to have to push by all of the ego, like easing out, and having like your doubt overfill your idea of like, I can do this, even if it doesn't feel like it's working right now. Is there something in me that's saying I can continue to go? But I think that's the biggest thing I can tell any woman, any entrepreneur, is to first find that mentor that you look at and you just see, outside of everyone I know, I'm going to surround myself with more people like that mentor, because it is going to happen. I fully believe that. And if you really think whatever you're on the path for is righteous, you need to follow that and be okay with there being people who might not see it as much as you feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter what your path, wherever you've come from, doesn't matter what your experience is, each and every person watching this show is an expert. You have some value that somebody else could use, that you could mentor a person with, and get your own mentor if you really want to start your business, or if you're ready to up-level that business, find people who have been where you want to go, grab onto their coattails and let them drag you there. That's what Janine's done. That's what I did throughout my career. You have help. Don't do it alone. Create community or join a community that can support you as you walk this. I'm going to wrap up that business piece of it, but you did kind of drop the words, my book got published. And so I wanted to spend, I know we're getting to the end of our half hour, but I want you to tell people what your book is about. And I know they can get it on Amazon, but just take a minute or two to tell everybody about your book. Cause we want to support you in being a writer and what you've shared with the world through the pages of a book.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And I do fully and transparently have a 4-part book that only the first part has been self-published. Because like I had mentioned at the beginning of this, is the pandemic made me realize that it is a passion of mine. It is something that I am working towards, although at least for the first set of this book called, and it's funny, I love doublespeak. I love words. And like I had mentioned, like definitions are always changing, especially for me. The title is actually Sonder Lives. Although through parts 2 and 3, it actually kind of comes more into the world of Sonder Lives. For people who don't know, Sonder is it's a word that was first published in 2015 in the obscure Book of Sorrows. And at least for the definition itself, it was defined as that uncanny feeling you get when you recognize that every person around you is living just as an extraordinary and intricate life as you, whether it be someone on a bus or someone who is tossing popcorn in a stadium. And it's funny because my main character, I have her literally in my mind, like the definition of humanity, even though she is a alien who comes to Earth and has a human experience. But more than anything, this book is taking excerpts out of my journals. And at least for the first part, it's a lot of the story that happened through me when my parents were going through a divorce, and what it meant for me then go to college and try to figure out a lot of life, not just in a household, but now out in the world of multifaceted learners. And again, being an engineer at a polytechnic school, one of 9 in the United States, being at a polytechnic school, it really was hands-on, learn by doing. And I cherish what the book brought out of me, and how much Sonder reminds me that that definition is so deafening when we recognize that we are abundant. And sometimes we forget not only what we bring to others, but what we bring out of them. And how often when we go through our struggles, we try to do it ourselves. And if we recognize that outside of the money world, which I don't know why people work, I know why I work. And I know a lot of times when people think about what success is, they forget success isn't done by yourself. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. And if we can start being in practice of realizing I came into this world not to be average and ordinary, I came here to be fabulous and extraordinary, we will start tapping into where our strengths are. And maybe, yes, you can strengthen your weaknesses or areas that you feel average. Although if we really create shine and scintillate from our strength and our areas of service, we're going to start building our own communities that not only channel into that conscious collection, but start having us all, like you had mentioned, having our tides lift all of our ships. Because if we really are in this conversation about what we're here, why we're born, what we're to explore, if we really focus on the areas of our brilliance, we're going to go beyond in those areas, like quantum leaps, like Price Pritchett says in U Squared, and just be in faith that when you take that step off, you only need to know where you're going and know that everyone who's watching you do it is going to join you in the divine time. And so I think that's what my book continues to remind me of as I'm going through part 2, which is more of like my college experience of realizing, like, is this really what I want to do? Yeah, I think this is what I want to do. And lo and behold, 5 years later, I became a statistic.
Wow.
But yeah.
So much goodness. Thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom with us today. And like I said in the intro, your goddess energy and all your wisdom, it just flowed out of you today. If folks want to get in touch with you, I know we'll put in the show notes all of the different places. Is there one in particular? Where's the best place to connect with you?
Well, after having this conversation, Lisa, I put in a bunch. I think the best way to not only connect with me, but to see why you want to be in a conversation with someone like me is to join the daily meditation. It happens every morning, roughly at 9 Eastern time, although sometimes people can hop on later. That is quite all right. But every day at 9 a.m. Eastern time, we hop on a Zoom. And that is not only the best way for me to connect with you, it is the best way for maybe you to connect with people who think the same.
Perfect. And we'll have that in the show notes. Can you give it to us on the audio as well? Do they look for you on the WhatsApp app group, or is there a name of that group that you'd like to share?
Well, the group itself is just the meditation team. And
Okay.
did you want the personal code or what did you want?
No, if they search for that group, the meditation team, they should be able to find it on WhatsApp.
Yes, they should be able to, although if they don't, it's 524-738-6640.
Okay, there you go. Replay and grab that. Otherwise, we'll have it in the show notes too. I just like to put it on the audio because sometimes people are listening on a podcast or some other means and they may not have those notes right there in front of them. But if you would like to get into that group, you can either reach out to me directly, check out the show notes, or replay and grab those numbers that Janine shared, and you'll be able to connect with that group. Again, thank you, my dear, for being with us today. I appreciate you and appreciate all your wisdom that you shared with me today, as well as so many of the different things that our lives are revolving around in together, networking and meditation and different spaces. So thank you. I do want to, I want to say to the audience, if you want to experience joy and personal fulfillment in your work, my team and I work to support business owners with simple solutions. If you could use a little bit of advice on how to do that, how to either get started, choose where to land your hat. If you want to do network marketing, I've been through a lot of them. I work with a lot of people in those industries. Or if you're ready to up-level your business and need to get your voice out there through digital means, we have solutions for you. And they're simple solutions that are easy for people to work with. If you're ready to implement an affordable powerhouse digital marketing, please reach out. My website is lisamosbey.com, lisamosbey.com. Just hit book it, schedule 30 minutes for us to chit chat about your business, and let's see what your next steps are. Other than that, we'd love to see you next week. We'll have, of course, another expert guest to introduce you to, and I hope you can come back and join us next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening.